engulfed the upstairs structure late this afternoon. City firefighters battled the blaze for 3 hours before extinguishing the flames. We have 2 reports on the fire. First, from Karen Bonnell.
The 2-story frame building on Mount Auburn Road was the headquarters for WIKY-FM. The studios were located in the basement, administrative offices on the first floor, and the upper level where the fire began was the home of Betty Engelbrecht. Mrs. Engelbrecht is a corporate officer of the radio operation, and she said it was her son, corporate president John Engelbrecht, who first noticed the smoke.
Mrs. Engelbrecht, do you have any idea what could have started it?
No, John seems to think it might have been an explosion. We have a master system which comes up through the center near the kitchen, and when he smelled something, he went up there, and that's where the flame was shooting out from. So it seems to be that it started from maybe where the the gas comes up into the gas fireplace. Maybe to that, we don't know. But there was nothing cooking or nothing, no candles burning or nothing of that sort. That was starting. Not even the Christmas tree was on, you know. So it started with a great gust because it had to. It was immediately shooting out the windows, the flames were.
There are about 40 employees at WIKY, but all managed to get out safely.
I was downstairs in the business section of the radio station, and John Engelbrecht came downstairs and told us to clear out of the building, that there was a fire in progress on the 3rd floor. Initial reaction was to think there's not much to it, but when we came out, the west end of Betty's apartment on the 3rd floor was totally involved.
I had just started my 4 o'clock newscast, and just before I went into my newscast, our receptionist upstairs buzzed me on the telephone in a kind of a frantic voice. I couldn't talk to her because I was the only one in the newsroom at the time, had to start my newscast. I got about 2 minutes into my cast, somebody came running into the room, said the 3rd floor is on fire and we're evacuating. So I just abruptly stopped my newscast right there. We put music on the air, and everybody evacuated the studios.
At 5 p.m., about an hour after the building was evacuated, the entire upper floor was an inferno. Firefighters were hampered by a lack of adequate water pressure.
Well, the only problem we've been having is you got a hill at this extent, and once you start using the plugs at the top of the hill, we had to pump up the hill, and that just creates a little bit of a problem. But when the men pulled out of Fives hose house down here on St. John and Franklin, they could see the fire coming out the corner of this building, and it had got into the attic before we got here, and we just couldn't get it stopped up here at the top.
Some observers said the flames could be seen from several miles away. It wasn't until 6:51 p.m., after nearly 3 hours of wrestling hoses and whisking the flames, that firefighters officially tamped out the blaze.
Of course, one of the big questions now is how soon will the radio station be able to get back on the air? With that story, here's Suzanne Thompson.
As WIKY employees watched their 34-year-old station go up in flames, there was still more than a glimmer of hope in their voices. WIKY management says the essential transmitting equipment was not damaged, so it could take anywhere from only a couple of days to a matter of weeks before they're back on the air.
It's really hard to say for sure just how long it's going to be until we can really get into the basement of the building and assess the damage.
News reporter Al Bragan says the fire is a tragedy to all WIKY employees. Even though workers are shaken up tonight, he feels they will pull together for strength.
We've got a great group of people that work for us. We're shaken up right now. Of course, this is a major setback for us, especially with all the plans that we have made over the past many months. We've just taken over the downtown radio station WROZ, and it's, you know, the future was so bright. This isn't going to hamper us in any way. As soon as the power is restored, we're going to go on the air from the transmitter site, which
Bragan's co-worker, Steve Gibson, says he feels a special unity has been formed between WIKY employees as a result of the blaze. And Gibson says with everyone's help and ingenuity, they'll be back to normal in a short time.
As soon as we do get our electricity restored, we can go on from down there. It'll mean probably a lot of us are going to have to go to our homes and get our own record collections and maybe some additional equipment to help supplement it, what we've lost. But as soon as we get our power back, we can go on the air from down at the tower.
WSWI also lost power as a result of tonight's fire as they share their transmitter with WIKY. Obviously, all WIKY employees are affected by tonight's blaze, but thousands of faithful WIKY listeners, as well as the new but growing audience of WSWI, have also shared in tonight's loss. Suzanne Thompson, News Center 25, Evansville.
Brad Bird is on vacation this week. In news at this hour, cleanup efforts began today at the studios of radio station WIKY in the aftermath of yesterday's fire that engulfed the upstairs portion of the station building. Despite extensive damage at the Mount Auburn Road facility, station personnel were successful at signing the station back on this morning. Suzanne Thompson reports.
Employees showed up at WIKY Radio this morning not to perform their daily jobs, but to help salvage what they could of the burnt Mount Auburn Road station. The floor above them, where the fire is thought to have started, is bare with only foundation beams recognizable. The main and bottom floors were not burned as badly, but water and smoke left a trail of damage. Station owner John David Engelbrecht would not talk on camera, but said he plans to find a temporary relocation site while the old WIKY is being rebuilt. Announcer John Story says the hours between the time they went off the air to their 2:30 a.m. rebirth were tough ones. Story says the lyrics to a popular tune describes what all WIKY employees went through last night.
And that's what a lot of us had last night, another sleepless night from Ann Murray on our Tuesday morning back in business for sure, as usual, or as close as we can come. Today, a word about the WIKY words. No WIKY word today, no contest, cause no phones as of yet. We should have the phones back in operation just a little bit later. I'm sure there's a lot of people trying to call us saying, what's the WIKY word today? Well, we don't have one. I suggested fire sale, but that didn't go over too big.
The station has been working since they went back on the air from a mobile studio. That simply is a garage, transmitter, van, and turntable. Programming director Dave Lehman says even under these primitive conditions, WIKY has not lost any of its quality.
It's no different a product than we put out from our main studio. We're just using our mobile studio as our main studio, and we did some splicing thanks to Swanson Nunn and so on, and we're programming what we normally program.
Engineers worked through the night trying to restore power to the station. They say the major problem was not technical, but fighting the city for electricity.
Well, we had to reroute some wiring in the basement. We called an electrical company to come out and do that for us. The biggest problem we had was getting the light and gas company to turn the power back on running through the basement of the burned-out building.
Last night's fire presented more problems. Firemen had trouble putting out the blaze because of low water pressure. Safety Board members have suggested that Fire Chief John Bamey attend the next Water Board meeting in protest of the difficulty and to discuss how other possible low-pressure areas on the west side may be corrected.
General Manager Charles Blake and station owner John David Engelbrecht will be looking at possible relocation sites today and hope to make an announcement on their move tomorrow. Suzanne Thompson, News Center 25, Evansville.
With WIKY signing back on the air today, the National Weather Service's Regional Bureau radio station is also back on the air along with ISUE radio station WSWI.
Landmark orange glow last night, but when the sun rose this morning, WIKY radio that was housed inside had come back to life. Dan Katz reports.
Last night, the scene looked like this. WIKY radio burned out and off the air, and the fire department struggling with low water pressure to fight the fire. But early this morning, and less than 12 hours after the blaze began, WIKY Radio was back in business, working out of a mobile unit while others swept and cleaned and salvaged what they could from their old home.
Everybody is pulling together. It's a cleanup effort. We're just trying to get the station back in the original shape that it was. Everybody is walking around seeing what needs to be done, cleaning up and putting together anything that needs to be done right now.
Phone company officials tried to figure out how to set up a makeshift phone system. Roto-Rooter pumped water from the basement. Fire inspectors tried to sort through the mess for the cause of the blaze. And station department heads were out looking for some office space to get their staff back in business. But all in all, everyone seemed content with the fact that no one was hurt, and they were back on the air.
Without this, we'd have been in big trouble, but it was down here, and it's safe, and we're on the air and in business. And that's the greatest thing about it. Of course, nobody was hurt. That's another great thing, and we're all very thankful of that. But we're on the air and back in business as best as we can be, and things can only get better from here.
So as investigators sift through the rubble and try to determine a cause of the fire, a fire which did major damage to the building, WIKY Radio is already back on the air, serving its many listeners throughout the area. Dan Katz, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Of the Evansville Water Board today asked Fire Chief John Bamey to their meeting to discuss the water pressure problems that at one time yesterday seemed almost insurmountable. Bamey says Mount Auburn is just one of many trouble spots in the city.
We've got an awful lot of 6-inch mains in the city that will continue to create problems long as they're there. And there's no way I know, and the board knows, that they can replace all these 6-inch mains in the city because it would just be economically impossible. The board did suggest that we try to take some problem areas, such as I'd like to check Wrights Hill and places like this where we're dealing with hills again, have a water flow taken and see what the water situation is in these places. And then at that time, if there's anything they can work out, well, I'm sure they would do.
Firefighters were forced to relay water from a plug located at the foot of Mount Auburn yesterday to WIKY. The Water Board's engineer is working on plans to help alleviate some of the water pressure problems.
Good evening. Despite a raging fire that destroyed its broadcast house, WIKY Radio hopes to be back on the air at 6 in the morning. By late afternoon, it was clear firefighters could not save the 3-story building. The upper floor apartment of owner Betty Engelbrecht and the ground floor office area were engulfed in flames. There was heavy smoke, water, and fire damage to the basement studios. David Burnett reports.
The fire started just before 4 o'clock. Fire officials said it possibly began in an attic just above the plush 3rd-floor apartment of Betty Engelbrecht. Mrs. Engelbrecht founded the station with her late husband 34 years ago. According to station officials, about 25 employees were in the building when the fire broke out. All, though, were evacuated. As you know,
well, my son came downstairs and said, get everybody out, get out right now. The upstairs is on fire, the 3rd floor, and the kitchen seems to be on fire. And of course, we, by that time, would start smelling the smoke, and we grabbed the animal, get the animals and coats, and I mean different things, and started running out. And as soon as we got out, we saw that the windows were already breaking out. So he said it seemed to be he smelled something and went upstairs, and it looked like an explosion from the center unit where we have all the heat and everything comes up through it.
the blaze appeared to be contained to the 3rd floor, but flames erupted again in several spots as darkness approached, and low water pressure and fire equipment failure didn't help the situation.
You have a situation where when you start pumping off the top of the hill, then of course the city's water pressure is not going to pump up there that much. So we started pumping from the plugs down to the bottom of the hills, and that's been our only real water problem. We had a deal where one of the pumps busted 2 lines pumping up from the rear down here off of Buchanan Road, and that caused us a little problem around the back where the wind was blowing back there at one time. It shut us down for 5 to 10 minutes before we got those lines changed.
Just down the hill, WIKY engineers worked at the transmitter building trying to get the station back on the air. Officials seem hopeful that by morning, a setup using the station's mobile truck would put them back in business. WIKY also served as headquarters for South Central Broadcasting. The Engelbrecht-owned company has a television station in Knoxville, Tennessee, and a radio station in Nashville. It also provides Muzak service to several states. WSWI Radio, the ISUE station, went off the air this afternoon. The AM station was donated to ISUE earlier in the year. Its broadcast is tied in with the WIKY operation. Also affected is the NOAA weather radio service and the emergency broadcast system, which WIKY handled for this area. David Burnett, Newswatch 14.
WIKY is back on the air, and broadcast executives are already making plans to rebuild the studios and offices on Mount Auburn Hill. As the ruins smolder just yards away, employees were at their microphone, operating out of a mobile van truck and a small concrete block transmitter building. Workers spent the night salvaging equipment and albums, and within hours, tri-staters were once again listening to WIKY. Lloyd Winicky has the story.
WIKY employees began the cleanup operation this morning, and by early afternoon, station management had already devised a game plan for the immediate future. In the next several weeks, construction workers are to remove the 3rd floor. A roof will be built on the remaining structure, and renovation will begin on the basement and ground levels. When that construction is complete, a new 3rd floor will be built atop the renovated facility. Owner John David Engelbrecht says that process could take a couple of years. In the meantime, the 50,000-watt signal is originating from the transmitter site down the hill from the station.
We're on the air from our mobile studio going direct into the transmitter, and we're fully functional on the air, and we'll stay that way until we can build some new studios at another location, and then we'll move to them.
Engelbrecht is now searching for a temporary studio site. He has 3 or 4 in mind and hopes to move station operations in the next 2 or 3 weeks. While that search is on, announcers are making the best of what they have, broadcasting from the station's mobile van inside what some call Studio G.
Well, it's a lot more active around here. Generally, I don't get to see anybody between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. I talk to Steve Gibson every half hour with news, and we'll still do that today. But, gosh, we even got TV cameras here and everything this afternoon, so
WIKY signed on about 2:30 this morning after being off the air for 10.5 hours. Lloyd Winnicky, Newswatch 14.
Firefighters are now faced with 2 nagging questions: what caused the WIKY blaze, and how to avoid the water problems they encountered yesterday. More from David Burnett.
Fire investigators spent most of the morning and afternoon on the WIKY building's 3rd floor, trying to piece together Monday's extensive fire. Late today, fire officials seem no closer to a specific cause to that blaze, but officials, however, have just about ruled out foul play.
Well, what we have done in interviewing the people that were in the building, made a determination of what area to look in, and then it's just a process of digging through and uncovering and taking a look at what's left. Right now it appears that the fire did start overhead in an enclosed area above the ceiling.
A great deal of concern was expressed Monday when on several occasions there was not enough water to put out the flames. The area around WIKY has only 6-inch water mains, which were used to their capacity, and the numerous fire trucks were connected to the lines. Fire Chief John Bamey said today that the 6-inch lines do not provide the necessary volume of water, which indirectly cause the water pressure problems. Bamey said costs prohibit wholesale replacement of water mains around the city, and added that it is quite likely that all large fires will cause problems for the fire department. David Burnett, Newswatch 14.